Hello, and welcome to Own Your Retirement. My name is Albert Lalonde from Kaizen Financial Inc. If you'd like more information about what you hear during our show today, give us a call at 586-752-7008 or visit us online at www.kaizenfinancialinc.com. And while at my website, click on my podcast page to check out our past shows or to subscribe to our program on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Amazon Music. All right. So today we're talking about something that we believe touches every single person who's planning for retirement, or who should be, I should say. And there are specific ages along the way that trigger important decisions, open up new opportunities, or may carry real financial consequences if you miss them. And today we're going to walk through all of them. All right. We're going to be drawing from a U.S. News and World Report article titled 10 Important Ages for Retirement Planning. Now, it's a concise, well-organized look at the milestones that shape how you save, when you claim, and how you actually manage your money across your working and retirement year. And as always, I'm glad to have my co-host, Tony Shore, here with me today, who is always planning for his future. Aren't you, Tony? How are we doing, buddy?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I wish I had started earlier. I wish I had known back when I was 21 years old what I know now,
Right.
obviously. And you've helped bring me up to speed each and every week here on the show. But Albert, it is so important. You need to make sure you have a strategy in place. And what I appreciate about today's topic is it's not abstract. There are actual ages with actual deadlines,
Yes.
and the decisions tied to these
Mhm.
could follow somebody for decades, right? I mean, it
Yep.
could make a big financial difference down the road. But before we get into it, how have you been? I assume you had a great 4th of July. Did you do much? Were you out on the boat or?
I didn't do a lot on the boat, out in the water. I did work on my boat
Oh,
for the
did you?
weekend.
Oh, okay.
So, transferring batteries, changing them
Oh,
from,
gee.
acid to lithium, make my boat
Oh,
lighter,
wow.
so I did a bunch of stuff like that, some more, yard, design that I decided to do last minute, but, I
Yeah,
enjoyed it. It was, peaceful, relaxing, was no timeline, just, out there doing what I felt like doing. So, how
good.
about you? How was your 4th?
We relaxed. We stayed home with the dog to kind
Mm,
of chill him out. We got together. Family came over, our kids,
nice.
and grilled. I love
Yes.
4th of July because it's an excuse to eat both a burger and a brat, and nobody's
Heck
going to look
yes,
twice.
yes.
Nobody's going to look twice. You can have both. Yeah, we had a good time last
Good.
week. Last week, but again, this is an important topic, and let's
Yes.
start at the beginning. Okay. What should somebody in their 30s and 40s be doing right now when it comes to retirement
Well,
savings?
the short answer is as much as they possibly can, Tony.
Yeah.
I know that's easier said than done, but the math really does favor starting early and being consistent. Compound growth needs time to do its work, and the earlier you begin, well, the less you have to scramble later. Now, for 2026, the 401k contribution limit for those 49 and younger is $24,500 for the year. If your workplace plan allows it, that's what you're aiming for. Now, the IRA limit, whether traditional or Roth, is $7,500. Now, not everyone can max out both of those, but the goal is to get as close as possible and then consider increasing your contribution rate every time your income goes up. Now, younger investors tend to have, let's say, a longer time horizon, which means they can afford to take on a bit more investment risk. That doesn't mean being reckless now, but it does mean you have more runway, so to speak, to recover from market swings. And that's an advantage you lose as you get older, Tony.
Yeah. Well, sure, it definitely is. And that makes sense because those early years are really about building that habit and maximizing what you can put away, right? So,
Yes.
what changes at 50? 50 is a big one, right?
It is. In fact, at 50, the IRS actually gives you a boost. Catch-up contributions kick in and they're meaningful. Workers who are 50 or older, well, may contribute up to $32,500 to most 401ks, 403bs, and governmental 457 plans, as well as the federal thrift savings plan. Now, that's the standard $24,500 limit plus an $8,000 catch-up contribution. Now, for IRAs, the limit goes up to $8,600 at 50. That's the $7,500 standard limit plus $1,100 catch up. So these amounts matter a lot for people who maybe weren't able to save as aggressively in their 30s and 40s. So life gets in the way. We understand that. Kids, mortgages, unexpected expenses. The catch-up provision are the IRS acknowledging that reality and giving people a chance to, let's say, accelerate their savings in the years when their earnings power is often at its peak.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And that is when it's at its peak. And so you do have to watch out for that. I mean, you want to take advantage of the catch up. And then I think there's something else at 55, right? That maybe people haven't heard of. What's the rule of 55 here?
Yeah, it's one of those provisions that tends to surprise people when they first learn about it. Now, if you leave your job at age 55 or older, whether you're laid off, you retire early, or you simply decide to move on, you may be eligible for penalty-free withdrawals from that employer's 401k plan. It's sometimes called the rule of 55, but the key word here is current. It has to be the plan from your most recent employer. It doesn't apply to old 401ks from previous jobs. Now, just because you can take those withdrawals doesn't necessarily mean that you should. The conventional guidance is that it may be better to roll the money into an IRA, which typically offers broader investment options and, well, more flexibility. Now, starting to draw down retirement savings, let's say at 55, unless you really have to, or there's a health situation that changes the math. That could mean running short of income later in life. So It's good to know the rule exists and to check whether you qualify before you make any moves, but it's not a reason to start spending that money yet.
Yeah, true. Okay, now let's talk about a biggie, and that is 59 and a half. And we hear this, we hear this age in regards to retirement planning a lot and investing. And that's a lot. This is the number a lot of people have in the back of their minds, right? As maybe a finish line for the penalty period.
That's exactly what it is. In fact, at 59 and a half, the 10% early withdrawal penalty goes away. You can begin taking money from your 401k, your IRA, or other qualified retirement accounts without that additional tax hit. Now, I want to be clear that penalty-free doesn't mean tax-free, folks. Right. If you have traditional 401k or a traditional IRA, those contributions were made on a pre-tax basis. So withdrawals are still subject to ordinary income tax. Now, what's gone at 59 and a half is the penalty on top of that tax. Now, Roth accounts work differently. Qualified Roth withdrawals are tax-free because you contributed after-tax dollars to begin with. And unlike traditional IRAs, Roth IRAs don't have a required age to start withdrawals. You could let that money sit and grow indefinitely if you don't need it. Now, it's also worth noting that you're not required to start taking money from a 401k or traditional IRA at 59 and a half. You just have the option to do so without the penalty. So the required withdrawal age doesn't come until much later, which we'll get to.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. And before we go any further, let's let our listeners know, Albert, how they can get a hold of you if they have questions.
Yeah, folks, if you're listening today and any of this is raising questions about your own timeline, like when to retire, how to, sequence your withdrawals, whether your savings are on track, just give us a call, folks, 586-752-7008, or visit us online at www.kaizenfinancialinc.com to schedule a complimentary consultation.
All right. Well, hey, let's pick up at the 60 to 63 window. Yes. I know a lot of our listeners might be in this window, and there's something new here worth looking at, right?
Yeah, there is actually. And it's a relatively recent, like you mentioned, under the Secure 2.0 Act, workers age 60 to 63 may qualify for what's being called a super catch-up contributions in their workplace retirement plans. So In 2026, the enhanced catch-up limit for most 401ks and 403bs, governmental 457 plans, and the federal thrift savings plans is actually 11,250. So that brings the total potential employee contribution to $35,750 for people in that age range if the plan permits it. Now, for someone in, let's say, that 60 to 63 window who has the capacity to save aggressively, this is a real opportunity. You're close enough to retirement that every dollar you put away now has meaningful impact, and the IRS is letting you put away more than ever before. So, not every plan, though, is set up to accommodate this yet. So, it's worth checking with your plan administrator or your financial services professional to confirm what your specific plan allows.
Yeah. Well, and there you go. I think that's so important. And when we hit 62, this is an even bigger age, right? This is when Social Security enters the picture for the first time. So give us some insight into that decision and the age 62, what we need to know here.
Yeah, age 62 obviously is the earliest you can claim Social Security retirement benefits. And for a lot of people, that's generally appealing. You've been working your whole career, let's say you've been paying into the system, and the idea of finally getting something back, well, that has real emotional pull. But there are significant trade-offs to claiming at 62, and I think it's important to be direct about them. First, claiming early results in a permanent reduction to your monthly benefit. For those born in 1960 or later, full retirement age is 67. If you claim at 62, that's 5 years early, and the reduction is substantial. In fact, you'd be locking in a lower monthly payment for the rest of your life. Second, if you're still working and you claim benefits at 62 and earn above a certain limit, your Social Security payments may be reduced. So you could end up in a situation where, let's say, you're bringing in income from work and from Social Security, but the Social Security piece is smaller than expected because of the earnings test. The
Yeah.
guidance in the article is pretty clear here, Tony. Claiming at 62 may not be a good idea unless you don't have other options. If you need the income or if there's a health situation where longevity isn't on your side, then 62 may make sense. But for people who have flexibility, waiting is almost always the better financial move, especially with life expectancies as long as they are now today.
Yeah, that's true. And so make sure you have a strategy. I know you have a Social Security maximization report that you can
Hmm.
run for our listeners and viewers out there. Another reason to give you a call, set up that no charge, no obligation consultation. Now, let's talk about a real biggie, and this is probably the age that when I thought of retirement growing up as a kid, 65 was the age I always heard about. And
Hmm.
that's where Medicare comes into play, right? And
Yes,
and it's basically on a separate clock from Social Security in certain ways, isn't it?
it is. And that distinction or trips people up more often than you think because
Sure.
Medicare eligibility begins at 65, regardless of when you claim Social Security. So the
Yeah.
enrollment window is 7 months. It begins 3 months before the month of your 65th birthday, includes your birthday month, and extends 3 months after. If you miss that window without, let's say, qualifying for, let's say, special enrollment period, then you'll face a late enrollment penalty. The Part B penalty is generally 10% for each full 12-month period you delayed. And unlike some financial penalties, this one doesn't go away, Tony. In fact, it follows you for as long as you have Medicare Part B coverage. So,
Hmm.
the standard Part B premium in 2026 is $202.90 per month. That's for basic outpatient coverage. Medicare has multiple parts. Part A for hospital coverage, Part B for outpatient, Part D for prescription drugs, plus Medicare Advantage and Medigap supplemental options.
Hmm.
And sorting through all of that, well, it's generally complex.
Yeah.
So, this is an area where working with a financial advisor or a Medicare specialist could really save somebody both money and I'm going to tell you a lot of headaches, Tony.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That's an important age. It's really important to get Medicare right. And I know that's why you have Medicare specialists there to help your
Hmm.
clients and people you work with. And then we get to age 67. And this one's a
Ah,
big one for a lot of us out there because it's
yes.
what's known as the full retirement age for a large portion of the current workforce anyway, right?
Right. In fact, for anyone born 1960 or later, something that covers a huge swath of people currently in their working years, full retirement age for Social Security is 67. So claiming at 67 means you receive your full unreduced benefits. In fact, the article mentions this could change at some point as part of a broader Social Security reform discussions, but it notes any changes would be unlikely to affect anyone that's close to retirement already. But the last time full retirement age was adjusted was in 1983. And the youngest people affected then were in their early 20s. So if you're anywhere near retirement age, you can plan around 67, I would say with confidence.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. And waiting until you're past 67 has an additional benefit, right?
Yeah, there is. In fact, up through age 70, each year you delay claiming Social Security beyond your full retirement age, your benefit grows by roughly 8% per year.
Hmm.
That stops at 70. There's no additional credit for waiting past 70. So if you haven't climbed, let's say claimed by then, you should consider claiming. Now, waiting until 70 to claim is the strategy that maximizes monthly income, and over a long retirement, that higher monthly payment could add up to significantly more in lifetime benefits, assuming good health and longevity. So, of course, it's not the right move for everyone, but for someone who's healthy, has other sources of income to, let's say, draw from in the interim, and wants to maximize their monthly Social Security check, waiting to 70 is actually worth seriously considering. Now, there's also a tax coordination angle here. Remember this. Social Security benefits could be taxable if your income exceeds certain thresholds. So by delaying Social Security and drawing from other retirement accounts first, you may be able to manage your overall tax picture more strategically. And that's a conversation I'm going to say is worth having with a financial service professional always.
Yeah. And we've went through all of these ages today. We just all the way up to 70. And that one thing that strikes me about all of them actually is how interconnected they all are. I mean, the decision you make at 62 can affect what you need at 65, and then that could affect your tax picture at 73. I mean, it's not really it's interesting. It's not really a checklist. It's more like a sequence of dominoes. You hit one and they all start falling over, right?
Yes. In fact, that's a great way to think about that, Tony. And that's also where having a financial service professional in your corner could really make a difference, folks. Because when you're living your life and working, raising a family, managing everything that comes at you, it's very easy to miss one of these windows or make a decision in isolation without realizing how it affects everything downstream.
Yeah.
So, an experienced financial service professional isn't just tracking these dates for you. In fact, they help you think through how the pieces fit together. When should you start drawing from your IRA versus your 401k to manage your tax bracket? If you delay Social Security to 70, okay, what do you live on in the meantime? And how does that affect your overall plan? Is a Roth conversion in your early 60s worth doing before RMDs kick in at, let's say, 73? These aren't questions with, let's say, universal answers, but they depend on your income, your health, your family situation, and obviously your goals.
Yeah. And it sounds like the sooner somebody gets this kind of guidance and gets the strategies in place, the more options they're going to have available to them, right?
Oh, yeah. That's really the bottom line. Many of these milestones have a window, and some of them are narrow. And once that window closes, well, the consequences could be permanent. So a reduced Social Security benefit stays reduced. A Medicare late enrollment penalty follows you all the way. Missing the super catch-up years between 60 and 63, well, it's time you can't get back. So working with someone who knows this landscape and can help you plan around it proactively rather than reacting after the fact could be one of the more valuable financial decisions you make. And that's what we're here for.
Exactly. Okay. So let's jump ahead here and close out with RMDs. You mentioned age 73.
Yes.
Required minimum distributions is one of those topics I think people don't think about until they're almost there, but planning ahead for that is important as well, isn't it?
Yeah. And before they get there, not after, is exactly when they should start thinking about it. Okay.
Sure.
Under the Secure 2.0 Act, required minimum distributions begin at age 73 for traditional IRAs, 401ks, and similar accounts. The RMD age is scheduled to increase again to 75 beginning in 2033, which reflects longer life expectancies and gives younger savers more time for their accounts to grow before they're required to start taking those withdrawals.
Right. So how does the timing work on this one?
Well, the deadline for taking your RMD in any given year is December 31st, but there is a one-time exception for your first RMD. You may delay it until April 1st of the year after you turn 73. So if you turn 73 in, say, July of 2026, you'd have until April 1, 2027 to take that first distribution. But be careful with that. Because if you delay until April, you'd also be taking your second RMD for the 2027 calendar year in that same year, which could push you into a higher tax bracket. Now, let's say you're still working at 73. You may be able to delay RMDs from your current employer's 401k plan. That exception generally doesn't apply to IRAs here, though, because those follow the 73 rule regardless of employment status. And as I mentioned earlier here, Roth IRAs are exempt from required minimum distributions entirely. There's no age at which the IRS requires you to start taking money out of a Roth IRA. That's one of the features that make Roth accounts so valuable from a long-term planning perspective.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And to recap, if you're 49 or younger, max out those contributions, as you mentioned, to 401ks, IRAs, your retirement accounts. At 50, make sure you take advantage of catch-up contributions.
Yes.
At 55, you could be in a situation to make penalty-free withdrawals if necessary. Not always recommended. And then 60 to 63 is a super catch-up window.
Yes.
Then 65, you said, was the Medicare eligibility. That's important. 67 is full retirement age. 70 is where you can, that's the longest you can hold out to take Social Security. That's the maximum. And then RMDs begin at 73. So we really covered a lot, didn't we?
We did. And you know what? These milestones that you're talking, they're not just numbers, folks.
Yep.
Each one may carry real financial stakes, and knowing them in advance gives you time to make appropriate choices rather than reacting when you're already there. So if any of today's conversation has you thinking about your own retirement timeline, folks, give us a call here at 586-752-7008 or visit us online at www.kaizenfinancialinc.com. That's Kaizen, Kaizen. And let's help you have a consultation so you understand all these milestones so that you can also own your retirement.
There you go. Thanks, Albert. Listeners and viewers, again, thank you for joining us today. That does it for this episode of Own Your Retirement with our host, Albert Lalonde.
Take care.